I'm here with Robbie Bosnak, who's a dear friend and colleague, and too an extraordinary author, and a person that I've known for a number of decades now. And he has come out with a brand new book, and that's what I want to talk to Robbie about. And it's a book that I have been fortunate to be a part of in a curious way. In other words, I've been in conversation over the years with him, and I get glimpses, just touches here and there, and it is fascinating. And now the book is out, and that's what we'd like to talk about today. So, Robbie, I know the book is on alchemy. So what I'd like you to do is share the title. And the question is, why alchemy?
Well, the title is Red Sulphur. It is actually a series of 4 novels, and it is a story about an alchemist family in the 17th century. So why alchemy? When I went to the Jung Institute in the early 70s in Switzerland, alchemy was something that you had to study because Jung was very interested in alchemy. And so I started to study and I became totally fascinated. And then, as you know, my training analyst was James Hillman, and he was very interested in alchemy as well. So I kept on, and then I started to read alchemy directly from the Latin. And it became more and more interesting because I could then start to study the actual documents from the 15th and 14th century. And I found with Jung that alchemy had an enormous relevance for instance, for dreaming, like our field. That the images that came up in alchemy were very similar to images that would come up in dreams, but so that alchemy is about the deep imagination. Alchemy is about the imagination as it embodies itself in the material, because for alchemists, all the materials, all the metals were bodies. And so it was what happens in the body. And so as the alchemist was studying what was happening in the body, you get a completely different background, having a 15th century background than a contemporary background, because we are basically all saying what the zeitgeist is telling us. The spirit of the time has complete control over us. It's very difficult to step outside the spirit of the time. That's why Jung went, since we can't go and ask the Martians, that's why Jung went to, maybe Elon Musk thinks we can, but I don't think so. So that's why Jung said, let's get a background that is like 500 years ago, that has nothing to do with us. That was before the subject-object split. That was at a time where there was still complete participation between self and material. And let's go there, and then we will get a very different way of viewing the world. And so I've been studying alchemy for everyday life, and I've been lecturing about it at the Jung platform. And so then I thought the best way to describe it is by way of fiction.
Yeah, and just the way you're describing now, what we know about alchemy, it's an extraordinary process. It is a process that really moves in and out and transmutes in and about. And I'm just curious, as you've been writing over these last number of years, this is not casual. This is a body of work that I've really experienced you taking a great deal of consideration with and toward. What is something about you personally? What's happened in your process as a result of this being birthed through you?
Well, the process of writing Red Sulphur, all 4 novels, took 10 years. So it was a major piece of work. And in the work, I began to trust the embodied imagination more and more, because I was following the characters, and I was basically a chronicler of their lives. And I began to know them and what was in character for them and what was not in character for them. And it was also interesting that I wrote it with three voices of the main three characters, and there was a section written in one voice and a section in another voice, and that actually worked together very well. And then it became magical realism in the style of the South American writers. And so I learned an enormous amount, not so much about myself, because I never thought about what it said about myself. I think that when you start to think in writing fiction what it says about yourself, you're sunk.
Mm-hmm.
I am totally uninterested in what it says about me. I am none of the characters. In the same way that when I'm dreaming, I am none of the characters that I encounter in dreams.
Mm-hmm.
They are autonomous. You and I know that. That's at the basis of both of our work. So the characters is the same thing. So I got to know character. I got to know these beings much more profoundly.
Mm. And are there any characters in particular that stand out for? I'm sure they all do, because they all have a voice. They all have a say in autonomy. They all have an embodied expression in psychic reality on their own behalf. Can you name just a couple so that we have just a glimpse of some of these figures?
For that, I have to tell you how this came to be, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And that is, we had a conference at Pacifica in 2000. And I spoke about alchemy. And one of the elements that I was speaking about was a report that was written by Spinoza about a transmutation that had taken place in 1666. And it was not just confirmed by Spinoza, it was confirmed by the Mint Master of Holland and by Robert Boyle, who is the father of chemistry. And so it came to me that if this were true, then everything else about alchemy would be true as well. Let's go and write something that that in fiction explores, by way of suspending disbelief, what happens. Now, the main character in it, the main male character, is a man called Mundanus, and he is a world traveler. And he has the last of the red sulfur that was made by his ancestor Trismosin, and he has the last of the red sulfur, and he needs to pass it along his bloodline, because the red sulfur can only be passed along in the bloodline, but he has no children. And a woman falls in love with him, he falls in love with her, but she is barren, she cannot have children. So she suggests that the woman that she brought up as her daughter will get the children for them. And so mayhem ensues, right? Can you imagine? Mother, daughter, one lover, children, it just becomes a total disaster. Mm. And so those are the three characters. The character is the alchemist, and it is this amazing alchemist woman, Marianne, and her niece, who's like a daughter, who is a weaver of magical cloth. And so those three characters are constantly working together, and they get children, and these children are also the children of red sulfur, because red sulfur is a live substance, as any alchemist would tell you, that red sulfur, which is the philosopher's stone, is alive, it's a living being, and there's a craving in the red sulfur to become human. So it's also a little bit of a Christ story. It's the God who wants to become human. And he becomes human by way of these two women. And out of that come the magical twins, the twins that are eternal, and that have the battle with the phantom that wants to take over, wants to eat them, so can take over eternity. So it's a battle for eternity. So it moves from magical realism into Marvel Comics.
Okay. I'll tell you one thing. I am excited listening here and now. And again, I find myself, my body comes to life. The enthusiasm that moves through me. And that says to me that these characters, of course, have an embodied presence.
Oh, they are fabulous. They're fabulous beings. They became my family, right? For 10 years, they were family.
Well, I'll tell you, I've shared this idea in the extended dream tending community and in the community working with imagination. Everybody is really thrilled. Thank you again for putting the time in and the focus into allowing this to be created through you. I know you got so much back, and two, you really were working hard to allow this to unfold, and now it's a gift to all of us. And on behalf of all of us, and on behalf of our community, thank you for bringing this forward.
And thank you very much, Steve, for talking with me about that, because we've been talking so long now. It's so much fun to talk with you.
Oh, it is. And I just want to say that I got my copy through Amazon. And is that the best way for other people that are listening to?
For everybody, go to Amazon, Robert Bosnak, Red Sulphur, and then you'll find it. The first two books are in a revised second edition, because when I had written all four books, I had to tweak a few things in the first two. So that is the revised second edition. And then there is book 3 and book 4. So it's in 3 volumes, 4 books and 3 volumes.
That's fantastic. Okay, it is, as always, a pleasure to talk with you. And I encourage everybody to get that book. And Red Sulphur, let's enjoy and engage together in community. Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you very much, Steve.